Hey, welcome back. I gotta address the microphone first so I'm gonna try from now on to keep the window open because it helps just with the lighting. But of course, I feel self-conscious about having the microphone there. So I covered it with a towel. I don't know. For some reason in my weird brain, it's like, oh, it's better if you just cover it with a towel. People can't see the microphone from outside. It's stupid. Anyway, today we're going to talk about the book. I'm basically done. I got like 10 pages left, but like I'm not expecting any twist endings. Oh, there's somebody walking by. He didn't look at me. Okay, thank you, sir. So I have a ton of notes, and I think I might break this up into 2 videos, and I thought this would be a good week to do that because I only recorded 3 Pokemon videos this week, and they're all, the audio's weird. My first note is interesting because it's like kind of me pushing back on this idea, like, and I've always done this, like, well, come on, let me be a people pleaser. Let me try, like, if I get to pick who I am, why can't I pick the person who's like wants to make other people happy? And the book kind of starts off with this axiom that we all kind of accept, like, well, you can't please everybody. And I'm gonna get to a point where like I like a lot of stuff in this book, but it's good to start here. I think it's funny. First of all, like that is kind of a thought terminating cliche. Like if you do something bad and you hurt somebody, to just say like, well, can't please everybody. Well, no, wait a minute. Why can't I try? Why can't I try to make everybody who interacts with me have a positive experience? And of course, throughout the book, she's like, well, I'm not really talking about that. But why is that a bad goal to have, to please everybody? Well, okay, we'll get to that later. It is bad. But that's me starting on this book and being like, because she did throw that out there, like, you can't please everybody. And I'm like, well, come on, that's stupid. So that's pretty much it. That's all the bad stuff. Now we get to the good stuff. That's it. That's just me starting off a book and like kind of trying to reframe things in my brain and just being like, well, no, I want to be this person. I want to not change at all. So when I started reading the book, I thought, oh, well, not having confidence is the bigger thing, not people pleasing. Because whenever I interact with people, I always just kind of assume that they're right. It's not like I want to please them. It's like I don't know what's right. So they might as well be right. Who am I to say what the right thing to do is? And I do think the older I get, the more that goes away. And I am still a people pleaser. This book has been good for me. So let's get into the good stuff. The book kind of lays out 4 different types of people pleasers, and I am kind of all of them. I think she kind of describes the classic people pleaser, and she described it as someone who, if you ask them what they want, they'll draw a blank because they never thought about what they wanted. That was definitely me when I first started therapy. Therapists would ask, what do you like doing? I'd be like, well, nothing. So that's definitely part of being a people pleaser, and also just like depression. I've gotten better now. Like, well, I like improv. I like it. I like doing it. I like reading. I like doing it. I wouldn't have read this entire book and wrote all these notes if I didn't like reading. I like it. And I actually read this book. I didn't do an audiobook this time. I sat down and I looked at the words and I put them in my brain like you're supposed to do. One of my notes is pleasing myself with books, exclamation point. I'm doing that. I'm reading Sherlock Holmes right now, and now I'm going to write like a little short story about, I won't talk about it, but I've talked about it in the Let's Play. And like that's kind of been enjoyable and therapeutic. So it's all good. I'm finding stuff. I definitely, and I've talked about this in regards to apologizing. I got flustered once recently when my mic didn't work with my therapist, and it helped me to talk to her about that because I realized I was, like, it's bad to do that. The reason I get upset is because I want the other person to know that I care, that I'm making a mistake. But a good example that I always bring up is like when I lived with my parents and my dad would make dinner. He would apologize like, oh, I know it's just like a hamburger. I know it's not the best dinner in the world. And I would get pretty upset when he would do that because I would say like, I wouldn't say this. I never said this and I should have. But I would think, why are you killing yourself? What about me has ever made you feel like you need to apologize for dinner? Like, I'm so grateful that you cooked dinner, and I really felt that way. Like, why do you view me like I'm your wicked stepmother and you're Cinderella? Like, oh, I have to clean everything and I have to make the dinner and I have to be perfect. I never asked you to be perfect. Why are you putting that on me? And I know if I told him that, he'd be like, oh, I didn't realize it. I wasn't thinking about your perspective. I was just wanted you to know that, I'm sorry about the dinner. And I would tell him, this is a conversation we should have had and we never did. When you apologize to me, it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like the wicked stepmother. And I would like you to not do that. And for some reason, I never internalized that and looked back at myself and been like, you do that all the time. You apologize and you still do it and you still don't view it the way you viewed it when your dad did it. Was that analogy stupid? I'm sorry. Oh, it's still bad. I still do it. I need to work on that. Because if my goal is really to make other people comfortable, then I wouldn't overly apologize. I'm doing it in a people-pleasing, selfish way to like cover my bases and hedge all my bets and be like, you can't be mad at me if I am just literally apologizing every second. Even when the other person doesn't want that, and it will actually make them feel worse to be apologized to. So gotta work on that. I could do a whole other video on people-pleasing and religion. I don't know how much. Like, some of my anxiety is genetic. Some of it is through religion. And I think of like 1% is my parents. I don't think my parents really did anything wrong raising me that gave me anxiety. I really don't. I can't think of anything. A big thing in Christianity is this idea of like gifts. We all have gifts. And one of the gifts that everybody always said that I had, like my biggest gift, was being a servant. Having a servant's heart, that's something you'll hear a lot. Like, you like serving other people. I think that is definitely a good virtue to have, but it's weird to put that on a child, and it kind of does develop weird complexes over time to be like, I need to serve other people to value myself and to be a good person and to think that I have any value. I need to be the servant that everybody says that I am. I think that is the origin of my people pleaser, and it's like not a bad thing to be like trying to help people, obviously, but to think that you always have to help people and like that's why you're a good person, that's how you develop into a people pleaser. Yeah, and I can remember like other non-religious things. It's just like, oh, Anthony's easy, he'll do anything. This is things they've talked about in the book, like things, if you're a people pleaser, you'll hear things like this, like Anthony is very easygoing and he'll go with anything. Definitely things I've heard before, and you start to value those things. It's kind of similar to, in one of my videos I talked about how like I developed social anxiety because people would say like, oh, Anthony's so nice and he's so quiet. I'd be like, okay, those are good things. People value those things. They think you're good and a good person when you're quiet. Same thing with the people pleaser. People think you're good when you're easygoing and like you'll just do what they want you to do. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, these notes are kind of all over the place. I'm just gonna scattershot you with all my notes, because then we'll talk about it in our book club. But I want to do this first. I have some good ideas. I know what's interesting, and then we could talk about it. Yeah, one of the things that like reading the book felt weird is for some reason I kind of picture myself as like a terrible person reading this book and just like getting all the wrong things out of it. That's why I would be kind of scared to write a book like this, because she is being very like, you need to assert yourself more. You need to be more like, I want this and this is what I like. And that's something that I do need to do and is helpful for me. But I'm like, what if a terrible person reads this and they're just like going to everybody and being like, I gotta look out for what's mine and I gotta take care of myself. Well, I mean, actually not really all the time. You don't have to do that. You can care about other people. It's okay. The book never really Well, okay, here's a good thing from the book that kind of summarizes her philosophy. She brings up this example of a child wearing a coat. So there's 3 different scenarios. One is your mom tells you to wear a coat and you wear it because your mom tells you and you want to please her and you want to do what she says. The second is you don't wear the coat because your mom told you and you want to do the opposite of what she said. And you're like, I'm not going to listen to you. And the third thing is you listen to your mom, you take in her information, and you make a decision about what you want to do. Do I want to wear a coat? Do I not want to wear a coat? It has nothing to do with my mom and my relationship to her. It's like, and when you get older, you can kind of mature and be like, well, if it would make my mom happy, I'll wear the coat, even though I know I don't want to because I'm like secure in who I am. I know I don't like wearing the coat, but because my mom asked me to, I'll just do it for her. Maybe even a higher level of maturity would be having that conversation with your mom and being like, I don't want to wear the coat. I will wear it because you want me to, but maybe we can have a conversation about like if I should wear the coat, like why don't I want to wear a coat, and I'll tell you why, and maybe that can help you, and you can be like, oh, maybe you don't have to wear the coat because of this new information you gave me. That's a whole other level. I guess that's why she was talking about it in relation to a child, because that's simpler. And it's like, there are people who wear it because they want to please. There are people who wear it because they want to rebel. And there are people who are smarter and they're like, I want to wear the coat or I don't want to wear the coat. It's my decision. My mom gives me input. I take it. I listen. I do what I want. So that's an example of pleasing yourself while also being aware of the other person. She tries to make it clear, like, pleasing yourself doesn't mean not pleasing other people or like being rude, but if you are a terrible person and you read this book, you could kind of get that impression, like, I'll just be terrible, and as long as I'm pleasing myself, it's fine. I do feel like, I guess if I wrote this book, I would spend the entire first half just talking about all the good aspects of people pleasing and being like, it's good that you think about other people. It's good that you want to help other people. And then after that section, it would be like, but there are negative aspects that are kind of hurting your life, and we need to reprogram or rethink exactly how you're people pleasing, because most of the time it might not actually be doing what you want it to do. If you want to connect with people, maybe you shouldn't be people pleasing most of the time. That's not a good way to connect, and you're doing it for wrong reasons, maybe, sometimes. But other times, it's good. Hey, helping people's good. We like helping people. I guess the way I summarized it was, pleasing yourself is about listening to others, including yourself. Just don't drown out your own voice with others because you're afraid to trust yourself. How many times have I gotten the advice? I just learned to stop giving a fuck advice. I hate that advice. You just don't care about what anybody else thinks. You should care about what other people think, but don't let it control what you do. Take in the information. I don't care. Yes, you're a human. If you really want to connect with other people, you have to care, obviously. So care and listen and change. It's okay to change. It's okay to be taking in new information and to be really caring. But you have to find your own voice and know what that is. That's the hard part. I guess for some people it helps to just be like, okay, first don't give a fuck about anybody else. Don't think about what anybody else is thinking. And then I can focus on my own voice. And then I can bring other people in. That might actually work, and maybe I should try that, because most of the time I don't really know what I want. But I'm getting better with that, and I didn't have to like push everybody else away to get there. So, I mean, if that works for you, it's good. But I don't think I would ever give anybody that advice to just like stop caring about what other people think about you. Care, always care. One of the 4 people pleaser personalities is called the resistor, which is interesting because it's kind of that rebel where it's like, you are a people pleaser, but then you kind of reject that part of you and kind of just turn the opposite way just because, and I can do that a lot. It's just kind of like putting up a defense against like caring too much and being like, I want to please you, I want to please you. And so you just shut that part off totally. I guess that's kind of what it's saying about like, oh, don't give a fuck. Those people are resistors. That's what I would say. And they're blocking off everything. Even though, I don't know, I'm kind of reading my notes, I'm kind of contradicting myself all the time, but whatever. I can kind of just be like, sometimes like I do this a lot, like, oh, I don't care about that guy's opinion, he's stupid. In the book, she talks a lot about parents and how like she's a therapist, and I like the way the book is structured. I should talk about that because she'll just tell stories from her therapist. So here's an example, like Amy. Here's a story about Amy, and I guess this is probably like about weddings, pleasing on weddings. And then she'll tell like, this is what Amy did to people please on her wedding, and she would have enjoyed it more if she didn't people please or something. So a lot of the book is about how people pleasing can obviously develop from a parent-child relationship, and how it can come from not receiving acceptance from your parents, and your parents, she calls them like the magic words, which were, I think, like, I totally accept you, my son. I totally accept you for everything that you are. You're my son, and I love you. Something like that. Like, those are the magic words. And if you never heard those magic words from your parents, like, you can give permission to yourself to say it to yourself or something. And then having that acceptance will help you to not be a people pleaser, because you can be accepted for who you are, and like not what you do to help other people or whatever. And it's interesting. I mean, well, that's not true. I think my parents might have literally said that to me like a dozen times. But for some reason, I still never accepted myself. And it might have to do with religion. Why did I think I was never good enough? I don't know. Was it just like a weird genetic thing? I can't blame my parents for that. Like, as much as I want to, because it would be so easy to just be like, oh, my parents are terrible. They were amazing parents, and I want to tell the truth like about that and how awesome they were. They definitely told me like, oh, I'm proud of you, and I love you, like, over and over again, and like you're the best ever. And so like, why? When I was a kid, I felt like a normal kid until I was like in middle school, and that was all my parents. I've always kind of felt that way, like up to middle school age. If you're a terrible kid, if you're a good kid, it's totally your parents' fault, basically. Because, like, you're not even thinking at that age, like 8 years old. You're just doing whatever. You're not having thoughts about, like, helping other people or being a good person. You're just like, oh, my parents, like, think it will be good to do this. Or, like, oh, my friends would like this if I did this. At least for me. Like, I was never thinking about, like, what is actually the good thing? Never. So I feel like kids, like if a 5-year-old is like a horrible monster, it's probably the parents' fault. And like when I was 5 years old, I was such a nice kid, totally my parents' fault. Because they were so good with me. And then when you get to high school age, it's more like you kind of have to take ownership of who you are a little bit more. I feel like you are thinking more about like what the right thing is to do. And so if you choose to do something wrong, that's kind of on you, not really on your parents. So once I got to that age, I guess I started to see like, well, I don't have any friends and people don't really like me. And I guess I did internalize that and be like, well, I must be a bad person, or I must be weird and awkward. And then I feel like that developed into social anxiety, because I could have just been a shy, like not talkative person with no social anxiety, because I am introverted. But just being isolated in high school for so long, that social anxiety developed and festered quest. And this is true, and it's like something that I really need to do. And like I've learned from the book is like, people, like especially my parents, they want to meet the real me. Like, I guess I can be afraid to like show them who I really am, because I'm like, I don't know who I am. So like, what if I act weird? And then they're like, oh, that was weird. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't really mean that. Like, that's not really me. I was just, like, trying weird stuff. And, like, I don't want to show them the real me until I know who the real me is, I guess. But my parents love me unconditionally. And they want to know who I am. And they want to meet that person. and I've never showed it to them. I mean, I kind of want to meet that person too, because I don't really know who it is. But I'm getting there, and I hope they don't die before I learn who I am and I can show them. They're doing okay right now, so they got at least a couple more years. I don't know. Nobody knows how long we have. I did tell my mom about signing up for the matchmaker, and the dating stuff is like really big to tell them about because that's super embarrassing. But I told her, like, I texted her a while ago. I was like, I signed up for a matchmaker. And she's like, that's awesome. Of course, because she's a perfect person. Yeah, the lighting looks so much nicer with the window open. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this into 2 videos. I'm not sure where I'm gonna put this part, but anyway, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Oh my god, that was long.